Today, Nike is a $50 billion empire. This is the story of how it all started. But 60 years ago, none of this existed. There was just a kid with a thesis. Phil Knight grew up in Portland, Oregon. Quiet, average, not the kind of kid who builds empires. In high school, he ran cross country. He wasn't fast, he kept showing up anyway. At Oregon, he ran for one of the most obsessive track coaches in America. His name was Bill Bowerman, inventor, tinkerer. He could not leave a shoe alone. Years later, at Stanford Business School, one paper changed Phil's life forever. His thesis asked a simple question. Could Japanese running shoes destroy the German giants? His professor told him to actually go find out. So Phil packed a suitcase. He flew Pan Am to Tokyo in 1962, 24 years old. No money, no backup plan. Tokyo was rebuilding after the war. Neon, ambition, and cheap labor everywhere. He took a train south to a shoe factory in Kobe. He sat across from three executives at a company called Onitsuka Tiger. Today you know them as ASICS. When they asked the name of his company, Phil panicked. He invented one on the spot, Blue Ribbon Sports. They led him through the factory, hundreds of women hand-stitching shoes. Against all odds, they shook on a deal. 300 pairs of tigers, a handshake. That was all it took, and it would change his life forever. Phil flew home with sample boxes and a head full of dreams. He unpacked them in his parents' basement. Inventory zero, capital almost nothing. Then he called the only man he trusted, his old coach, Bill Bowerman. Phil handed him a tiger and said, "Try it on." Bowerman laced them. He ran. He frowned. He took them apart. He had a notebook full of ideas. He'd been waiting 20 years to use it. They each put in $500. The total starting capital of Nike, $1,000. They printed business cards, Phil at the top, Bowerman at the bottom, then they shook hands. Blue Ribbon Sports was officially in business. The first store was a tiny rented space in Santa Monica, California. Phil drove from track meet to track meet. He sold shoes one pair at a time. Coaches inspected the soles. The grip was good, the price was right. He kept the inventory in the trunk of a green Plymouth Valiant. Runners crowded around. They were sick of stiff German Adidas shoes. First sale, $7.95. Cash on the hood. Their first employee was Jeff Johnson. He answered the only phone they had, but success doesn't pay bills. The IRS audited Phil 3 different times. The bank threatened to pull the loan. The company was always 1 month from dying. Phil typed letter after letter, begging the bank for 1 more month. Jeff Johnson was obsessed. He kept the books, the catalog, and the dream alive. Some nights he slept on a cot in the back of the store. But Phil kept pushing forward. He'd seen something nobody else had. In 1968, the Cortez launched. It became their first real hit. But across the Pacific, Onitsuka was furious. Phil was already secretly designing his own shoes. Phil made a fateful decision. He would break away. He would build Nike's own line. Bowerman wasn't fazed. He'd been waiting for this moment for 10 years. He tore Tiger shoes apart with surgical precision. He found every flaw. He sketched new soles by hand, every grip pattern he could imagine. He tested every prototype on real athletes, lived data on a cinder track. He timed every run with a stopwatch. He measured every gram. He poured rubber into molds for months. Nothing worked perfectly. Then one Sunday morning in 1971, Bowerman poured molten rubber into his wife's waffle iron. The grip was unlike anything that had ever existed in running. It also destroyed the iron. His wife was very much not amused. They needed a logo. They paid a Portland State design student $35. Her name was Carolyn Davidson. She drew dozens of variations. She inked one final shape, a simple, perfect, swooping curve. Phil hated it. "Maybe it'll grow on me," he said. They needed a name. Phil scribbled options on a yellow legal pad. Falcon, Bengal, Dimension 6. He hated every single one. The night before the factory deadline, he had a dream. The Greek goddess of victory whispered one word. He typed it. Nike. 1971. The first shoeboxes stamped with the swoosh rolled off the line. At Hayward Field, a young runner trained alone at dawn, Steve Prefontaine, long hair, mustache, eyes on fire. He laced Nike's first shoes and broke the tape every time. He and Bowerman talked shoes between every single workout. At the 1972 Olympic trials, Eugene packed the grandstands for him. Steve Prefontaine became the soul of Nike. Then in '75, he died in a car accident, 24 years old. The country grieved. Nike named him their soul. Forever. The waffle trainer launched. It changed running culture overnight. By '78, Nike had moved to a real headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. In 1980, Nike went public. Stock symbol NKE. Phil became a millionaire overnight. He rang the bell on the New York Stock Exchange trading floor. 2 years later, the Air Force One launched. Sneaker culture exploded. And then, in 1984, came the deal that defined Nike forever. Phil Knight signed a 21-year-old rookie nobody believed in yet. His name was Michael Jordan. Phil bet $500,000 he would matter. They built him a shoe, black and red. They called it the Air Jordan. It broke every NBA rule. The league fined Nike $5,000 per game. 4 years later, at a small Portland ad agency, 3 words were born. A copywriter scrawled them on a whiteboard. Just do it. It hit American screens in the summer of 1988. An 80-year-old jogger crossed the Golden Gate Bridge, just doing it. Just do it became a billboard, a philosophy, an entire movement. Tiger Woods walked out of Stanford with one phrase, "Hello, world." Bo Jackson did everything in 2 pro sports. Bo knew everything. Serena, LeBron, Kobe, Mbappe, every legend signed with Nike. Air Max revolutionized sneaker design. Flyknit revolutionized manufacturing. Vaporfly broke marathon records, the fastest shoe ever made. In 2019, Eliud Kipchoge ran a marathon under 2 hours, wearing Nike. Today, the swoosh sits on every Olympic podium on Earth. It all started with a Stanford thesis and a coach with a screwdriver. Phil Knight is now in his 80s. He still watches Oregon Ducks run. Nike's flagship stands on every continent, the swoosh everywhere. $50 billion. And it all started with $1,000. Just do it. 3 words, 1 swoosh. A world that ran with it.